So
Yeah, I understand. I'm kind of a little bit jealous of you. It's February right now, and you're talking about being on the beach. That's a little bit, yeah. We don't need to talk about that.
hey, listen, I was after growing up on the North Shore of Boston, as a kid, and I moved to Nashville when I was like in my late 30s, and then we realized. I mean, it's not like we couldn't look at a map, but we realized we were landlocked in Tennessee. And so, after 30 years of that, we have left Nashville and we have a house on Seacrest Drive here in Florida and 10 C Street up there in Manchester. So,
Wow.
where you can see there's a theme running through it.
So the ocean's always been part of your ethos, so to speak.
It has, and
Yeah.
my wife as well. I mean, we went to high school together 50 years ago, and we got married up in Gloucester.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always been
I love the
fun.
square in Gloucester, man. It's so nice up there, and
Oh, yeah.
there's like 4 or 5 bar rooms on the square up there. At least there used to be 20 years ago when I was there. But I used to be a
Yeah,
taxi driver, and I'd sneak in there all the time to try to take people home at the end of the night. It was always extra money if you're coming from Boston. You happen to be in that neighborhood at that time. But
oh yeah,
yeah.
oh yeah.
But yeah, the bars all let out at 2, and everybody's just kind of going and stumbling everywhere. Boy, I'll tell you, as a taxi driver, you can make some bank. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about growing up on the north end of Boston. You were born in Winthrop, right?
Born in Winthrop, but I moved to the town I grew up in when I was only 8 months old. So I didn't know Winthrop. I knew Winthrop from visiting both sets of grandparents.
Right.
But we moved to this town called Lynnfield, Massachusetts,
Mm-hmm.
when I was 8 months, and I was there till I could be on my own. you know. So that was always home, and that is part of the North Shore. It's not on the shore, but it's a short drive to the beaches, and it's just a part of everyone knows about Cape Cod
Mm-hmm.
down there in Cape Cod, by God, and but there's Cape Ann as well.
Mm-hmm.
Cape Ann is the other Cape, and I actually think I prefer it. I love Cape Ann. It's just got so much history and so much going on too, musically and theater. I mean, just like everything to do. When I'm here in Florida, there's nothing to do.
Yeah. What was that like? Like, what were your first musical memories and stuff growing up in that part of the country?
Well, it might be boring, but I remember my first record that I played over and over was this record called Diana by someone famous. Diana. This one I'm like 4.
Yeah.
Okay. By the time I was 7, I had a band called the JB4 and the
That's Paul
Incredibles.
Anka, wasn't it?
Huh?
Wasn't that Paul Anka?
Yeah, Paul Anka. That was
Yeah.
right. That's
Yeah.
the Diana. I played that to death because it's the only record, the only 45 that was in the basement. But my first 45 I ever bought was in 1967. We were traveling across the country in the year of the hippie movement, and I bought MacArthur Park.
Mm.
The cake is melting in the rain.
Yes, that's great
And
stuff.
and what's funny is we were traveling across the country and back to Boston in a station wagon with my mother, my grandmother, my 2 brothers, and the record actually melted because I didn't know records melted in the sun. So I still have it though.
Yeah, that's something you don't learn in Massachusetts either because it's not that hot up there, right?
Right, right. And we went out. We were in California, I think, when I came back to the car, and it was. Meh.
Yeah. Man, there's so much to talk about with you because you have such a cool dichotomy as well, evolution over time of how your career kind of followed a path that doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm really excited
Still
about
makes no
trying to make
sense.
sense of it. Um,
Yeah, it still makes no sense to me, Chris.
yeah, I can imagine because, like I said, from the Northeast, it's not exactly a hotbed for country music. You didn't grow up in country music. There were hardly any country vibes or even influences on you growing up. But yet, some of your biggest songs are country hits and even staples, iconic songs in the country genre.
Yeah,
Um,
I got to tell you, um, there was not even an FM country radio station when I was. It was after the band broke up, and I made 3 rock albums for RCA. Boom. And
Yeah.
then the band broke up after we lost our deal. Everyone wanted to do other things. I said, well, I just want to be a songwriter. And there was this little AM station in Waltham called WDLW, and they played country music. And I'm like, whoa. First off, it was a very cool time in country to like all of a sudden go, because all I knew for country was hee haw.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden I got Lyle Lovett, I got Foster and Lloyd, I got Nancy Griffith, I got oh gosh, Dwight Yoakam, and then I said I got to go check this out. So I went to see Ricky Skaggs at the Wang Center,
Wow.
and it was almost like a religious experience. I was like, what the heck is this? These musicians are so good, and these songs and these harmonies, and it blew my mind. I went out and bought everything Ricky Skaggs had on vinyl, the next day.
Hmm.
And I said, I want to write, I want to, try my hand at writing this kind of music because I love it. And I've always loved the voice, the emotion in voices like George Jones and oh my gosh, the other guy, there were two. It was Keith Whitley. Yeah, I loved him, but Vern Gosdin.
Yeah.
And I love the emotion in their voices because I'm a really emotional person, um, and I just wanted to write. I really wanted to write like sad country songs.
Yeah, there's a lot more vulnerability in country. You're allowed to be more honest. I feel as a songwriter, right? When you're
Mm-hmm.
writing that kind of stuff, I love that. So yeah, we have very similar upbringings in Brockton. We had WCAV, which was my only country radio station. Of course, I'm not the same generation as you. Grew up in music in the '80s. With Clint Blacks and Garth Brooks and Reba and all of those were hitting radio. And we had probably a few more platforms to kind of get our country on. We had Marshfield Fair. They had country acts from time to time. The Cape Cod Melody Tent, Indian Ranch in Webster. I remember meeting Loretta Lynn and Crystal Gale over at Indian Ranch, and this was all in Massachusetts. People wouldn't even know that this stuff is out there up there.
That's
Um,
cool.
yeah, it truly is, and I love that because, like, you're talking about, coming up with rock and roll, and you're signed to RCA as a rock artist as well, with your band, and yet, for me, next to me is one of those iconic country sounding songs with the fiddle and the way it sounds, and that was your big hit, one of your big hits at first in country.
Yeah, that song. First off, that song was written primarily in New Hampshire. I'll tell you that story. But it also, after I started to have a little bit of success going to Nashville, and trying to get people to write with me because that's always tough for anyone that just comes into town.
Are you
I
still
would
remote at
listen.
this time? You're remotely writing? Like you're not in Nashville yet?
Right? No, I was still I was still up in Boston from
Okay.
87 to 90. I was coming to Nashville about every 6 to 8 weeks with a whole bag full of hooks, hopefully.
Wow. Okay.
And then
Yeah.
I found out where all the songwriters hung out. There were just about 3 places. And I knew in the afternoon, everybody's over here at the Longhorn, and then they move over to Third Coast, and then they're going to end up at Mods or whatever. And so I started literally, singing. Hey man, what's going on? Hey, check this out, and I would sing a chorus, and I get, hey, nice pal. Excuse me, I'm waiting for somebody. Or I could get sometimes. That's pretty cool. And I just go, you want to help me finish it? And I got a few takers. That's really how I kind of got to, because I've heard from so many friends that I knew back in Boston
Hmm.
that now that I live back there, they're like, man, I went down there and tried to do that and I couldn't get arrested. And I'm like, well, first off, you didn't call me. That was a mistake because I'd love to have seen you. But secondly, yeah, it's really, really hard to just walk into
Hmm.
town especially from the Northeast and
Yep.
go,
Hmm.
get a right country song, especially when you can't even pronounce the word hot. So,
That's so true, man. I had a friend named Yankee Jack. I don't know if you've ever heard that name in Massachusetts. Yankee Jack and Marie. Um, Man, he was a fabulous songwriter. He ended up his entire career ended up being down there on Duval Street in Key West, but um,
Nice.
just a strange place to end up from the Northeast. But he tried to make a go at Nashville, and they just would not give him the time of day. So I've heard the stories from him. So
It's so hard. It is.
yeah,
But then once I just, I felt like I got very lucky, I think, because everything to do with anyone's successful career. And I got lucky, and then I got lucky again, and then again and again. And I'm really thankful for